nobody thought the ocean was this deep. So all of a sudden we've got scientists saying, why is that?
All right, listen up. Because today we're diving headfirst into a mystery so chilling, so profound, it's going to make you question everything you thought you knew about our own planet. What if I told you that the deepest place on Earth, the Mariana Trench, wasn't just a geological feature, but something far, far more significant? What if it was, in fact, a prison? And what if just recently, after decades of silence, something just got out? For years, scientists believed the ocean was simply, well, deep. A vast, dark, crushing expanse, largely empty, but beneath 7 miles of unimaginable darkness, the Earth keeps secrets older than civilization itself. Then, in 2014, a sound unlike anything ever recorded emerged from the Mariana Trench, haunting, rhythmic, impossible to explain. At first, it seemed like a new kind of whale call. But then, the whales started disappearing. Over the next 10 years, scientists followed those echoes, not knowing they were tracing the edges of a doorway. And finally, after a decade of unnerving discoveries, the Mariana Trench mystery has been solved. And trust me, it's not good news. It all began quietly in the summer of 2014. A team of marine researchers working under the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, launched a fleet of autonomous underwater gliders into the abyssal zones surrounding the Mariana Trench. The mission was routine: collect acoustic and temperature data to map the ocean's deep currents. But what they uncovered was anything but. From the darkest depths of the ocean, over 7 miles beneath the surface, came a signal that defied logic. At first, the instruments picked up a low, undulating roar, an almost animalistic vibration that rolled through the trench like an invisible avalanche. Moments later, the roar gave way to a piercing, metallic resonance, a crystalline chime that reverberated with the sharpness of struck steel. The two sounds played in sequence. First, the growl, then the ring. It was unmistakably deliberate. The team dubbed it the bio-twang, a name that reflected both the biological possibilities and the strange twanging quality of the higher frequency. Yet, it was unlike any known marine mammal vocalization, seismic tremor, or man-made signal. Whales, known for their haunting calls, tend to follow discernible rhythmic patterns. Earthquakes have distinct decay signatures. Submarines, even experimental ones, produce mechanical tones. This was something else entirely. Structured, shifting, and unsettling in its unpredictability, the gliders recorded multiple instances over the next 48 hours. Each time, the origin point dipped lower into the trench, as though following an invisible path, a current only it could sense. Scientists reviewed known sound databases. Nothing matched. The ocean, long considered the final frontier, had just whispered a riddle through layers of salt, pressure, and time. Now, to truly grasp the enormity of this, you need to understand the Mariana Trench itself. This isn't merely Earth's deepest natural scar. It is a vast, pressure-crushed vault where the very fabric of life and physics bends in ways we are only beginning to understand. Stretching 1,580 miles in length, it forms a crescent arc between the coastlines of Japan and the Philippines, plunging to a depth so profound that even light dares not venture there. At its lowest point, Challenger Deep, the pressure exceeds 1,000 times that of sea level. The temperature hovers just above freezing, and the darkness is absolute. It is a realm where the rules of life, growth, movement, and energy are stretched and twisted into forms we can hardly imagine. For years, the trench was assumed to be biologically dormant, a place where life simply could not survive. But the bio-twang proved that assumption shattering. What made the bio-twang so mystifying and increasingly unsettling was its mobility. The sound didn't just emerge from one spot, it echoed across vast stretches of the trench as if bouncing, off invisible walls or hidden structures deep within the earth. Acoustic modeling revealed an even more baffling pattern. The sound source appeared to ascend and descend vertically with an almost unnatural precision, leaving behind acoustic footprints that traced the steep, jagged walls of the trench. The sound did not simply emanate, it traveled. It moved. It seemed to scan, like something actively exploring its surroundings. The signal also exhibited lateral movement, traveling across tens of miles. Further complicating the mystery, the sound seemed to leap across the trench in a seemingly deliberate fashion. As researchers mapped the data, the conclusion was unsettling. Whatever was causing this sound appeared to be active, aware, and possibly even intelligent. It was almost as if something was searching the trench, scanning it, mapping it, trying to understand it. Theories naturally poured in. Hydrothermal activity, deep sea tectonic shifts, but these explanations failed to account for the nature of the sound, its precision, its apparent pattern, and its alarming mobility. By 2022, the dataset had expanded exponentially, growing to over 200,000 hours of oceanic audio collected from various points of the Mariana Trench. The sheer volume of data was staggering, far beyond the capacity for traditional human analysis. To manage and extract meaningful patterns, the research team turned to artificial intelligence, harnessing the power of machine learning algorithms to process the data at an unprecedented scale. The key breakthrough lay in the conversion of raw audio into spectrograms, a visual representation of sound frequencies over time. These spectrograms allowed researchers to view the sound in a way that the human ear could not. The AI algorithms began to detect correlations between the frequency of the sounds, their duration, and the specific geographic locations where the sounds originated. This marked a pivotal moment in the investigation. After scanning countless hours of spectrogram data, the AI detected a peculiar pattern, a sequence of sounds that matched exactly with the acoustic signature of Bride's whales. The match was precise, akin to identifying an acoustic fingerprint. This discovery seemed, for a moment, to resolve the mystery. The biotwang was, in fact, being produced by the whales. However, the team's excitement was immediately tempered by a troubling anomaly. Further analysis revealed that the biotwang did not occur in isolation. Along with the whale calls, there were subtle seismic pulses, vibrations not linked to any volcanic activity, but rhythmic in nature and exclusive to a specific part of the trench. These pulses were like a hidden layer beneath the acoustic data, suggesting that something more than just whales was responsible for the phenomenon. The timing and location of these pulses were far too precise to be random, hinting at a deeper, more mysterious cause. It wasn't merely the whales that were making the sound, it was the unique environment of the trench that seemed to be influencing their behavior. This unexpected discovery opened new lines of inquiry. Why were these seismic pulses occurring? Were they natural, or could they be the result of some unknown phenomenon deep within the trench? And how were they connected to the whale's behavior? As the team dove deeper into the data, the seemingly innocent sound of whale calls began to unravel into something far more complex and enigmatic. What had once appeared to be a simple case of whale communication was now a multifaceted puzzle. That defied explanation. The plot was thickening, but the answers remained elusive. Bride's whales are known to be creatures of warm coastal waters, rarely venturing to the extreme depths of the Mariana Trench. Yet, this particular pod had returned year after year to this region, a place characterized by intense pressure and near-freezing temperatures. Their presence in such a hostile environment defied conventional biological expectations, raising fundamental questions about their behavior. Researchers, baffled by this anomaly, proposed a theory they dubbed the Marco Polo hypothesis. The idea was that these whales weren't just communicating in the traditional sense, they were navigating. The calls, they surmised, were designed to triangulate each other's positions within the trench, relying on echolocation in a place where traditional sensory cues were unavailable. These contact calls were more than mere communication. They were essential for navigation in the oppressive darkness of the trench's depths. However, a deeper question lingered. Why had the whales chosen this specific location year after year? And what was it about the time and place that seemed to make this behavior so urgent? The real intrigue came from the consistent pattern of the whales' behavior. Archived sonar data revealed a consistent approach. The whales would circle a specific location in the trench before releasing the call, but never entering it. They would surround the area, but always at a distance, as if guarding something unseen. It was as though they were protecting a secret, a hidden core of the trench that they dared not approach. Was there something they were trying to warn others about? Or was this pod engaged in a form of territorial marking, guarding a place that, for reasons still unknown, seemed to hold great significance? The scientists were no closer to an answer. But one thing was clear. The trench was not just a home to the whales. It was something more. And the more they studied, the more they realized how little they truly knew about the ocean's deepest secrets. Then came the 2016 spike. It began quietly, just another fluctuation in Earth's complex climate cycle. The 2016 El Niño was one of the most severe in recorded history, with ocean surface temperatures in the central and eastern Pacific rising by more than 2 degrees Celsius above normal. Coral reefs bleached, weather patterns shifted, fisheries collapsed, but buried beneath the headlines of environmental chaos was a far stranger anomaly, one that passed unnoticed by nearly everyone. From late March through December of that year, autonomous hydrophones stationed near the Mariana Trench recorded a threefold increase in the now infamous biotwang. The sound, previously rare and scattered, became relentless. It grew in frequency and volume and complexity. The tone sharpened, its melodic hum often trailing off into a distorted metallic reverberation, like something struggling to communicate through pressure and time. Marine biologists were the first to flag the change. Bride's whales, previously observed only in sporadic patterns near the trench, began clustering unnaturally close to the deep. Their numbers surged, pods tripled, and their vocalizations, normally used for echolocation and mating calls, began to mimic the biotwang pattern, almost as if responding to something. At the same time, anomalies crept into the surrounding oceanographic infrastructure. 3 deep ocean monitoring buoys failed within weeks of each other. Their internal diagnostics showed no software glitch, no battery failure, just sudden total loss of data transmission, as if the ocean itself had swallowed the signal. Fisheries along Micronesia reported a baffling drop in deep-sea fish catches, despite favorable environmental conditions. Then came the false alarms. Between July and November 2016, the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center logged 12 seismic alerts originating from a dense cluster directly above the trench. Yet every alert was a phantom. No tectonic activity, no aftershocks, no tremors felt on land. The source was below the crust, but not in any way geologists could explain. What triggered the alarms wasn't ground shifting. It was vibration, pulses, waves of resonance, deep and regular. And then, just as abruptly as it had begun, the pattern stopped. The biotwangs diminished. The whales dispersed. The ocean returned to an eerie calm. It would take 8 more years before anyone understood what those signs may have meant. In 2024, amid renewed interest in unexplained deep-sea anomalies, the Oceanic Frontier Institute launched the Trench Echo Initiative, an ambitious project, to map the Mariana Trench's subsurface in unprecedented detail. A research vessel, Mistral Horizon, was deployed near the Mariana Archipelago, equipped with next-generation ocean-bottom seismometers capable of detecting the faintest movements, hundreds of miles beneath the seabed. What they discovered changed the mission overnight. Over a 6-week period, the seismometers picked up an unnatural signal, barely perceptible, yet unmistakably deliberate. It wasn't tectonic, it wasn't volcanic, it wasn't mechanical, it was rhythmic, like the slow, deliberate contraction of some massive structure beneath the crust. The data showed a recurring pattern. Every 86 minutes, a low-frequency oscillation pulsed outward from a depth exceeding 11,000 meters. It didn't behave like a quake. It behaved like a heartbeat. More disturbingly, the signal was moving, drifting northwest, inch by inch, leaving microfractures in the sediment and trace thermal disruptions along its path. Phenomena consistent, with something massive displacing seafloor material without rising toward the surface. Simulations were run. Known biological entities were ruled out. Geothermal activity couldn't replicate the rhythm, and submersibles dispatched to track the movement returned with corrupted sonar data. Interference patterns, they said, like the signal was actively scrambling detection attempts. One night, as spectrograms were being reviewed by a team of marine geophysicists and AI anomaly analysts aboard the Mistral Horizon, a strange overlay emerged. The oscillation wasn't alone, it was interwoven with the faint echo of the biotwang. And for the first time, they were synchronized, sound and pulse moving in tandem as if one was following the other. That's when Dr. Akari Watanabe, lead seismologist and head of the mission, muttered the words that would later be quoted in the preliminary findings submitted to the International Oceanic Science Council. That is impossible, because at that moment, the data didn't just suggest a biological origin, it suggested intent. Something deep beneath the Earth wasn't just moving, it was responding. And it was still alive. By late 2024, the Pacific's serenity was shattered, not by storms or quakes, but by a haunting pattern that no one could ignore. Bride's whales, those elusive, sleek giants that once haunted the edges of the Mariana Trench, began to wash ashore. At first, it was a single strand in Palau, then 3 more in Micronesia. A week later, 27 carcasses littered the coast of Papua New Guinea. They were not just any whales. Several were tagged individuals that marine biologists had tracked for over a decade. These whales had become familiar through data logs, migration paths, social calls, seasonal returns to the trench's periphery. Their sudden, simultaneous deaths set off alarms in every marine biology institute on the Pacific Rim. The postmortems were grisly and perplexing. Their vestibular systems, responsible for navigation, were ravaged. The spiral ganglia of their inner ears burst like overripe fruit, the tiny bones dislocated from shock. But there was more. Their sinus cavities were unnaturally swollen, and some skulls bore internal fractures with no external trauma. Tissue samples revealed something stranger still: extremely high concentrations of an unknown bioelectric compound. The substance pulsed faintly when stimulated in the lab. It didn't behave like any organic secretion. Instead, it responded to low-frequency vibration, amplifying in strength and disrupting electromagnetic equipment. Researchers began calling it resonant plasma, a term they'd later regret coining. These weren't the injuries caused by ship strikes or human sonar. This was something deeper, something more primal. The autopsies pointed to resonance trauma. The internal organs of the whales had been shaken apart from within, as though struck by an invisible frequency tuned to the core of their biology. Even more terrifying, analysis of vocal cord positioning and nerve tension suggested that many of the whales died mid-call. Their bodies had frozen in distress, vocalizing what researchers would later interpret as synchronized, panicked warnings. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a mass message. Cut short. Whatever had emerged from the trench wasn't just disrupting ecosystems, it was erasing them. While carcasses piled up, a multinational scientific alliance scrambled to understand the source of the catastrophe. Theories abounded: hydrothermal gas leaks, deep-sea mining detonations, or even weaponized sonar experiments, but none accounted for the precision, the targeted biological breakdown. So researchers turned to what the ocean always leaves behind: its genetic fingerprints. Teams collected seawater samples from a grid mapped around the last known location of the biotwang signal. Using advanced eDNA extraction techniques, the samples were filtered, amplified, and sequenced. At first, the results showed typical marine signatures: plankton, cephalopods, detritus from nearby migrations. But buried within the noise, a sequence began to repeat. A strand of RNA, foreign, non-random, and terrifying. It defied classification. The codons, while structured, did not correspond to any known marine organism. More shockingly, parts of its structure bore metallic bonding patterns, the kind seen in extremophiles that thrive near hydrothermal vents, but with syntactic symmetry suggestive of engineering. This wasn't natural evolution, this was constructed. Part organic, part alloy, possibly biomechanical proteins fused with microlithics of manganese and cobalt, elements abundant near the trench floor. One scientist compared its layout to quantum neural matrices, calling it RNA with a memory. Others were more cautious. But everyone agreed on one thing: this organism or mechanism was ancient, not newly formed, but reawakened. And it had been sleeping at the base of the trench, unmoved, unnoticed, protected by depth, silence, and darkness for centuries, perhaps longer. What disturbed it, no one could say. But now, the biotwang is gone, replaced by nothingness. The silence was not a relief. It was the absence left behind by departure. As the RNA concentrations increased near the sound epicenter, researchers noted an even more chilling correlation: the complete disappearance of whales in the area. Not just the bride's whales, but all cetacean life. Not a single call, not a single echolocation ping, no clicks, no songs, just silence and rising heat signatures. Whatever had risen from the trench was not whale, not fish, not machine, and not microbial. It was something else, and now it was here. In the early weeks of 2025, the world trembled, but not in a way that most people noticed. Just west of the Challenger Deep, the deepest known point of Earth's oceans, an undersea earthquake registered at magnitude 5.9. It was modest by tectonic standards, but what it triggered was anything but ordinary. Seismographs deployed across the Pacific lit up not from surface tremors, but from a subterranean collapse. Over a 3-mile stretch of trench floor, sediment layers gave way, vanishing into what scientists described as a sudden atmospheric void. Not a crack, not a rift, a cavity, a space that should not have been there. And then everything went quiet. The biotwangs, once steady and patterned like whale songs amplified by the gods, fell silent. No more pulses, no melodic trails, no rhythmic calls. For 12 days, researchers received nothing but oceanic static. The stillness was deafening, like the breath held before a scream. On the 13th day, the sound returned, but it was different. The new audio wasn't music, it was madness. The spectrograms displayed thick, tangled threads of sound that overlapped chaotically. Some were guttural and deep, others shrill and needle-thin. There was no tempo, no repetition. They weren't echolocation clicks or tectonic rumblings. They were layers of noise, breathing, grinding, slithering. Something was moving. One AI model trained to recognize natural oceanic frequencies crashed while processing the data. A second flagged the sonic signature as non-biological, non-random. Then it did something even stranger. It matched the pattern to outdated schematics from Cold War-era sonar jamming devices, prototypes for scrambling enemy communications at sea. What was generating these sounds had an acoustic fingerprint too intelligent to be organic, yet too alive to be mechanical. This wasn't evolution. It was emergence. As of now, the Mariana Trench is no longer classified as a passive geological feature. It has become an active anomaly. Satellites show thermal plumes rising from the ocean floor, irregular bands of heat stretching northwest from the site of the collapse. The water itself is changing. Surface temperatures across a 400-mile radius have risen by up to 2.6 degree Mirux in just 3 months. That rate should be impossible without a volcanic event, but no magma has been detected. Fishing fleets operating near the Philippine Sea are reporting equipment malfunctions. GPS units flicker and reset without cause. Sonar images return static or unnaturally clean voids, as if something is blocking the signal. Worse still, the Mugtim whales are leaving. Bride's whales, long attracted to the trench's acoustic beacon, have abandoned the region entirely. Pods have been sighted thousands of miles off course, some even entering Arctic territories they've never before inhabited. Marine biologists now believe the biotwang was not a social call. It was a warning, and now that warning has ended. No more biotwang. No more echoes. Whatever intelligence signal had been pulsing from the deep, whether crafted by cetacean minds or something far older, has gone dark. The pressure that kept the unknown trapped beneath the trench has been disrupted. The anomaly has breached its confines. And while the surface world still spins in oblivious motion, the rules of the deep have already changed. New organisms are appearing in net trawls, gelatinous, translucent creatures with metallic flecks, and electromagnetic fields that disrupt compasses. Coral reefs near the Mariana Plate are bleaching at exponential rates, with fibers of bioluminescent material embedded in the skeletons of dead polyps. Across the scientific community, a silent consensus is forming. This wasn't a natural event. It was a containment failure. The Mariana Trench mystery has been solved, but the answer is not closure. It's a door that has swung open. And whatever was behind it, it's not good. If the Mariana Trench was never just a natural formation, but a prison, what exactly have we just set free? And what happens next? Share your thoughts, your theories, your deepest fears in the comments below. And if this story sent a shiver down your spine, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the unknown. You won't want to miss what we uncover next.